Do you read Summit Game? Greetings, folks, and welcome to another edition of After Hours. This time I'm joined all the way from the Ukraine by Mr. William Burton McCormick. How are you doing,
Hello.
sir?
I'm doing great. How are you tonight?
I'm very good. I'm very good. So what town is it you're in the Ukraine?
I'm in a town called Kharkov. It's Ukraine's second largest city.
Right.
It's about 30 miles from the Russian border. Known for technology. They used to build the missiles during the Soviet era here,
Right.
actually. So they could build tanks, and
Cool.
so it's got this interesting combination of universities and sort of techno history to it.
Nice.
Techno
Yeah, sort of
technology, so
military
it's not
complex kind of thing. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So what's it like there at the minute, weather-wise? Is it?
It's cold and rainy. Our summers are short, so summer ended in mid-August. So we got about 2 weeks till winter, I'd say.
Yeah, I've seen because I've been to Rostov in Russia, and that was basically like 2 weeks of blazing hot sun, and then it was just like living in a freezer for the rest of the time, pretty much. Yeah. Which must be kind of a bit of a change, being as because you're originally from the near Las Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from a little town outside of Las Vegas, and it's warm all year long.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw snow until I was like in university, until I was 18 years old. So,
Nice. Yeah.
But we see snow all the time here in Kharkov.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. So I was just looking on your bio before we came on, and it's like you're a member of like the Crime Writers Association and various other like things. I had a look and I've just completely forgotten them all now. But so how long have you been? So what you mainly do is mainly sort of crime writing and mystery writing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's always a crime side to it.
Yes.
There's a lot of historical stuff.
Right.
And I'm probably, like a closet weird fiction writer who tries to sneak in, speculative elements whenever he can.
Nice, because I wanted to bring this up because you've been in Lovecraftiana magazine, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
I had the editor on here the other night.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Gavin Chappell.
I'm a huge Lovecraft fan, and so
excellent.
So my range, usually it's got an Eastern European setting because I've lived in so many Eastern European countries. I've lived in Latvia, Estonia, Russia, and Ukraine.
Yep.
So that inspires a lot of stuff, but it can be anything from, a ghost story to a financial thriller. So, I mean, there's
nice.
a huge range in what I
Yeah.
As long as someone gets killed sometime in the story, it's all good.
Yeah, as long as there's some blood and guts somewhere, it's okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Monster, spy, banker, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, so you've just released a KGB, what was it called?
KGB Banker.
KGB Banker, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just been released.
Yeah, it came out last week, actually, and about 2 days ago, an ebook and paperback last week. So we're real proud of it. I wrote that with a man who is a real life whistleblower against the Russian mob. And
I saw that on the cover. Yeah, the whistleblower. Yeah,
a gentleman named John Christmas, and he and I got to know each other through a mutual friend when I was living in Riga, Latvia.
Yeah.
And he told me his story. And I said, I'm not a nonfiction writer. I'm not a journalist. I said, but we could turn this into a heck of a thriller. And so that's what we did. John and I wrote it together, and
Nice.
it just come out. And it's about this American guy that comes to Eastern Europe and he thinks he's going to clean everything up, and he gets framed for murder, and things get worse after that. So,
Yeah, as they usually do. Yeah. It's all downhill from there. Yeah.
all downhill from there, right? Yeah. No speculative elements in that book, but there's sort of a Lovecraftian thing where it's, the guy comes and he discovers what he shouldn't know, and it blows his mind. Same sort of existential dread. Yeah.
Nice.
More from Russian mafia than from the Elder Things or anything like that.
But it's a similar kind of concept, isn't it? Knowledge is dangerous, Too much knowledge is a bad thing,
And I got to apologize for most light here in my kitchen. So you can see like all these coffees. I wish every one of these little coffee cups represented like a book. Instead, they're more like a paragraph, to get through the day.
Yes, I was looking at. I was trying to work out. It was like it looks kind of like what you get in a restaurant,
It's what my landlord thought was attractive in a kitchen. It's,
nice, right? Yeah, fine. Yeah,
how it goes.
I thought you were in a cafe or something at first. Yeah.
No, I often do write in cafes. I thought about doing this in a cafe, but the problem is if people hear you speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come over and they'll give you shots of vodka to be friendly. But it's sort of hard to have like a conversation about your books and your career as they keep piling up the vodkas. And if you want some drunken Ukrainian guy sticking his face in front of us as we're talking, but so I decided to do it in the kitchen with the coffee.
Yeah, it's I once decided it was because the guy upstairs was doing DIY and it was driving me insane. So I took my laptop and I decided to go and get some work done down the pub. Oh, it was a mistake. It's just every 2 minutes people are coming over. I should have stayed at home with the hammer drill,
Right. Yeah. That's a problem here too. There's a neighbor that likes to do a lot of carpentry, so I always have to go out in the middle of the day to a cafe or a restaurant or a library to get some work done.
Get a bit of peace and quiet. Yeah. This guy's been like doing. I don't know how. I mean, his flat's not exactly big. It's the same size as mine, right? But in the 2 years I've lived here, he's been constantly doing DIY. So God knows what he's doing up there. Probably like building a Trojan horse or something. I don't know. Yeah. So that's just come out, and you've got a novella coming out very shortly with Madison Press, haven't you? Which is a different beast altogether from what I imagine.
Very different different book. Only common denominator is Eastern Europe. That's it.
Right.
The novella that's coming out is called A Stranger from the Storm, and it's set in 1900 in Odessa.
Nice.
And it's essentially about these two sisters who are recurring characters in some stories of mine, named Tazia and Eleni Kardovina. And at midnight, this stranger shows up and demands a room, and he's British actually, and they don't know what to make of him. And he's got a scar and sort of a spurious story. And
it sounds like most of my mates.
And then they find out there's a murderer in town, and then they begin to see, is this guy the murderer? Is he not? It's all an excuse for me to explore Odessa in 1900 and sort of be very atmospheric. It's set in Odessa, but it's very Victorian, lots of fog and mysterious characters, and they end up in the catacombs. Odessa has the largest catacombs in the world. There's over 2,000 miles of tunnels below the city, and they all snake into like basements and anywhere you see in Odessa to this day, you see a little blocked up wall, and it's the entrance to a tunnel that will lead somewhere into the netherworld. And so the characters end up down there. And there's also a lot of dark, sort of Hitchcockian humor in it.
Yep.
And I was working with Ron there to edit it, and he just did a great job. And I am really proud of that book. And it doesn't have a speculative element either, but it's so close. It feels like it should almost have a speculative
right.
element.
Nice.
It's
but it's sort of historical, so it's not a million miles removed. Yeah, that's really interesting about the catacombs. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I have written 3 short stories and now a novella that I've been in those catacombs. You can take tours of them. And they're amazing, and they just go on forever. They're not catacombs in like sort of the classic French catacombs where they have bodies in them. They're really just mines. The limestone mines. They took the limestone out to build Odessa, but they call them the catacombs, and they just go on forever. And there's all these. You can write a story any era, because like during Soviet era, where private industry was forbidden. People would go down in the catacombs, and they would have gene factories and make things, and they'd smuggle them out into the Black Sea and take them over to Istanbul, and all these sort of things that really happened. And
that's really interesting.
I almost wanted to do an anthology of just Odessa stories, but they all ended up in the catacombs, and I thought it was too repetitive, so I ended up with my novella. So
nice, excellent. I'll have to look into them. That sounds really, really interesting.
I haven't read any of your work, but I've listened to 3 of your stories that you're reading, and I could see you could do some fantastic things down in those catacombs in Odessa. So
it sounds right up my street. I mean, because Cornwall, where I set most of mine, it's all mines. It's all like it's just riddled with holes. It's just there's this whole world underground. And I love that kind of thing. I love that kind of thing.
Now, I have a quick question about some of your work, if you don't.
Oh, yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
Well, I have not had the fortune that I said read, but I listened to 3 of your readings.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I want to give you a compliment. You're very good at your readings in terms of being atmospheric and expressive and really drawing the listener into your story. Like when I do the readings, I am just like the worst literature teacher you ever had, really flat. But you're a very good storyteller naturally when you're speaking, so I want to give you that compliment. But,
thank you.
All right, so I listened to a Matter of Recycling.
Yes.
Very good, enjoyed it. Is there a subtle reference to the Migu, since you're a Lovecraftian person in that?
To what?
To the Migu from A Whisper in Darkness.
Yes, there is. Yes,
I thought so.
Yeah. No, well, that's linked through because I've created my own old one, who's a sort of a crustacean kind of insecty parasite god, basically, and lives in like refuse and feasts on the waste of humanity, kind of thing. And and the Migo are I linked through the Migo into the greater Cthulhu mythos universe. So well spotted.
Excellent story. And I wasn't sure. It's the combination of they were sort of insectual, crustacean-like, and then the whispering, and the sounds that were getting into the character's head.
Yeah, the buzzing and that.
Definite connection there. So
yes. Well, I kind of see them as a sort of like a separate race, but sort of still joined into the sort of into the fungi from Yugoth kind of thing. It's still that old big fungal conglomerate. So well spotted. Yeah, I've done a few things.
I like how our conversation has evolved from like killer bankers to killer fungi from other solar systems.
Great, isn't it?
Pretty natural, right?
I love it. That's what's great about being a writer. You can do that. You can be having a totally serious conversation about you know, Soviet spies and all the rest of it, and whistleblowers and all that kind of thing. And then the next minute you can be having a serious conversation about Funky from Yugoth. Yeah.
And another of yours that I listened to that I really enjoyed was The Body Electric.
Oh yes, yes, yep.
Yes. I don't want to reveal anything to anyone who hasn't read it or listened to it. So I want to make sure I don't spoil anything. But you can assume in a story like this that there eventually will be some entity or creature or something like that, right? And I enjoyed it immensely. And at one point, you just say a character throws a beer can at it. And I just remember thinking, if this happened to me, that's exactly what I would do. I would just chuck that beer. Why not?
Exactly.
See if the beer
But
can
they're the
works,
sort of
right?
things I like to throw in, because that's the sort of thing that real people would do, isn't it? Go, throw a beer can at it.
Absolutely, I agree. That was a nice touch.
Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was one of my more ridiculous ones. I had immense fun writing that one.
It was good. Listen, I keep wanting to say read, but I have not technically read it. I've only listened to you read it to me.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy doing the live readings. I haven't done one in a while. I should do another one soon. But yeah, I do enjoy doing them. It just came out of complete necessity, because I can't go to bookshops or anything like that to ply my wares. So I've had to come up with different ways of doing it, like during the pandemic and all that.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
No, carry on. Yeah,
I said I saw that you have a short story collection coming out through Madison Press. I saw
do.
the cover review. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cool. It was, I can't remember its title. It looks very Lovecraftian.
Yeah, the pseudopod that rocks the cradle.
Pseudopod that rocks the cradle. That's right.
Yeah.
Great title. And the book trailer has the famous Lovecraft quote about the unknown and
There's that's a Matter of Cycling's actually in that. That's it's all cosmic horror. It's all Lovecraftian. It's all quite very along the same lines as what you've listened to. Yeah, I love that cover.
So it sounds like you actually write in Lovecraftian mythos in the actual world. So you have people reading the Necronomicon and all that and things like that. Yeah. That's cool. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan.
Yes.
You know what the scariest thing that Lovecraft creature there? Because I know a lot of people like to catalog the various creatures and aliens and gods and things like that.
Yeah.
To me, the scariest thing he ever created, more than a Shoggoth, more than anything else, is whatever Danforth saw over those mountains as they're flying away at the end.
Exactly.
Don't know what things.
Exactly. Was it an enormous Shoggoth? Whatever it was, it wasn't good.
Yes, exactly.
I love that scene. I love the fact that it's not explained, because some people have had criticism of that, haven't they? They've said, "Oh, he didn't explain what it was." No, don't explain what it was.
Exactly. Except whatever, because you sit around imagining what could it be, and and that is so powerful. As Lovecraft said, the greatest fear is the fear of the unknown, and that is unknown.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it was a great point. Yeah, because like I was talking to Gary Chappell about this the other day about that, and it's the bits that he leaves out that really stick in your head, because your brain fills in the blanks, and your brain you can take your brain to some really dark places filling in those little blanks. That's what I love about cosmic horror in general. Yeah.
Like in The Rats in the Walls, all the stuff that's in that cavern beyond where they ever explore. When Delaporte goes insane, and you don't know what's down there. I love The Rats in the
Walls. That's one of my favorites.
That's what got me into Lovecraft. I went to university in Providence, Rhode Island, and at that time was not into Lovecraft. I had friends that would go on the Lovecraft tours, and the only story I'd read at that time was The Shunned House,
right? Yeah.
Which is good, But to me, it was like, okay, so he digs it up and there's an elbow of a giant. And I didn't really get why this is so fantastic. I thought, was that some reference to like Nordic things where the giants are under the earth and all those? I didn't get it. And then maybe 10 years passed, and I got in this Victorian ghost story kick where I was reading
Nice.
M.R. James and Sheridan Le Fanu and
Wilkie Collins, all them guys. Yeah.
early Blackwood, and
Yep.
And then I ran out of stories, and I said, "Oh, I'll try this Lovecraft Rats in the Walls," and I was hooked because that was just it blew my mind. It was one of the best things I've ever read.
It's great. The whole thing about it, the setup, and it's just that the scratching behind the walls. But then when you investigate, it can't be because it's a solid stone.
Right.
Now that's creepy. It's like, what the hell? Yeah.
Or when they get down right into the sub basement, and the psychic immediately faints, and that's so powerful because like, what is he sensing that blows his mind? Because at this, it's like we're talking about the unknown and the unwritten is as scary as any tentacled monster.
Definitely. Yeah, because in that as well, you've got the dreams, but it's mainly just suggestions of these malformed things and this almost swineherd, and it's just it's just
flabby, pale thing, and
these pale, misshapen creatures, which may or may not be his ancestors.
Early on in that, when he wakes up and he had the first dream about the swineherd, and he says, Norris may have laughed more or may have laughed less if I forget exactly how it goes. If I had told him what I had dreamed of, do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
So you can still feel the influence of Poe at that point.
Yes, you can. Yeah. You can see the influence of Blackwood as well on his earlier work, and Chambers actually as well. You can see that influence, but definitely in that you can see the Poe, because there is that sort of almost poetic language to it, isn't it? It's almost it's almost poetry, the way they're talking, which is very Edgar Allan, isn't it? Yeah,
I like even his more conventional stories. Talk about Poe. Cool Air is almost straight out of Poe, and it's great.
I love Cool Air. There's one that not a lot of people think about. Another one is the pictures in the house. I really like that. I really like that one, but it's one that people just sort of don't really talk about. But I really like that one. That creeped the hell out of me when I read that as a kid.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. There is a very good reading of that by the Lovecraft Podcast Society. I don't remember exactly who did it. I'll send you a link.
I know exactly what it is. It's the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, the Dark Adventure Radio Theatre, because I collect them. I've got all of them because they're amazing. These radio dramas. I love radio. I love radio dramas because I grew up listening to radio serials and things like that. And I love it because, again, your brain can do much better than any CGI or anything like that. The pictures you can get in your brain are a lot better than what you'd see on a TV.
Absolutely.
Their version of Cool Air was really good as well, and they were actually in the same one, weren't they? It was the bad
not
science.
on the link I saw. I don't think I've seen their version of Cool Air. The Cool Air, I've heard a couple, but I think they're just sort of like stock readings. I haven't seen their version of Cool Air or listened to their version of Cool Air.
Yeah, I think it's on the same because I think it's on the same CD. Bad Medicine, I think.
I don't do CDs. I do this from YouTube links. And
yes.
Like that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you're listening to them on the podcast, because it's all on Spotify and Anchor and all these other things as well. But I'm one of them sad. I'm one of them sad collectors that if I'm going to have something, I have to have the collector's box with the postcards and all. I'm a marketing man's dream. If you put a shiny cover on something, I'll buy it. That's why I've got no room in my flat, because it's just full of stuff.
Uh,
Yeah,
I
I'm a
was
bit,
like that until I became so nomadic, and then you have to throw
yes.
stuff away. You have no choice.
Yeah, well, I've moved around quite a lot, but I I have storage units. I have them big, the big old metal storage crates full of crap. Just
Right.
I've got one up there,
I,
just outside of Manchester. I've got one.
uh-huh.
It's full of all this crap from my teenage years. There's just stacks of records and books and comic books and all sorts of crap. I need to go and sort it out at some point, but it's just
When you
a
see records, do you
terrifying
mean
thought.
literal records, like wax
Oh yeah.
records? You mean, oh, wow. Okay.
Oh no, I collect vinyl. I collect the records. My flat, the whole entire wall over there is full of them because I'm a DJ. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm a hoarder. It's like when
Mhm.
everybody else was digitizing theirs, I was buying other people's record collections.
Uh-huh.
They were just like, I've put all this on my laptop. I don't need these anymore. Ooh, I'll have them. Yeah,
Before we get on to other things, since you mentioned radio shows and we've been talking about Lovecraft, the BBC's version of Shadow over Innsmouth and they're at the Mountain of Madness are both great if you've ever listened to those.
Yeah, their version of Charles Dexter Ward was really good as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a few over the last few years and they've been really, really good. The BBC kind of stopped doing radio drama for a while. But they've just started doing it again. And I'm still really happy that they've started doing it again. Because it's like they did a radio adaptation of Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere as well, and that was superb. And yeah, it's really good. It's really impressive. So I'm ridiculously happy about this because there's certain things that I don't think work that great in film unless you've got like millions and millions and millions of pounds worth of budget. A rubber tentacle is always going to look like a rubber tentacle.
Right. And let me ask you this: how would you do the color out of space in a film? It can't be. You can't do it.
This is it. This is it. This is it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, and it's like I remember I can never pronounce the guy's name. Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce it. But he wanted to do an adaptation of Mountains of Madness. How the hell are you going to do a shock off?
Well, with CGI, but you're right.
But it'll look crap.
Right.
A ball of unidentifiable matter,
Yeah.
shimmering with colors that the human eye can't figure out.
Pustules appearing and disappearing and all that. Right?
Yeah, and pseudopods left, right, and center. Yeah.
I'll do. I told you I write crime fiction, but I'm a closet speculative writer.
Yes.
And so I have a story in Ellery Queen's mystery magazine right now, a full-length novella
Nice.
Called Demon in the Depths. And again, there's nothing speculative in it, but there's almost, and there's a scene where a character is on the bottom of the Arctic Ocean
Right.
in a deep sea suit, and she's in a chasm, and she puts herself to the wall as this giant sea creature comes rushing past her. And I deliberately reference the first description of the Shoggoth when he says it's like sitting there on a underground station rushing by.
Yes, it's like being on a train station. Yeah.
That was my little hint to my real interests.
Your little nod. I like it.
Right.
You're gonna have to do a full-on. You're just gonna have to go full-on Lovecraftian in one of these. Like really pull the rug out from under everybody. Start off doing a spy thriller, and then just throw in some deep ones or something.
I'm sure there are people that are doing things like that. I know
there are. Yes, well, I've done it myself, but there is some like some really good like thriller stuff. Like espionage thrillers, and then it's all got like Charles Stross does it with the Laundry Files series, and David Conyers does a lot of that as well. And it's great stuff because it's all like really well sort of researched and set in the Cold War, and and all the rest of it. And then you've got eldritch abominations. It's like,
well, Call of the Cthulhu almost starts out kind of like a detective story before it goes into
it does.
different place.
The narrative of Inspector Legrasse is very detective. I mean, I think that's almost Lovecraft, because he was a huge fan of Poe, like we just mentioned. But I think that was him almost doing Auguste Lupin. Wasn't it? That was like his take on Murders in the Rue Morgue, wasn't it?
I can see that. You're right.
Yeah.
Now that you say it, it had not occurred to me. I mean, I knew it was a detective, but I didn't think back to Poe's detective. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've always seen it. Is Legrasse was basically his version. Was sort of his take on Rue Morgue and all that.
I never made that connection. Very good. Very good. So,
yeah.
Anyway, at some point, I mean, as I said, I have a couple of classic ghost stories, and I've done with these same characters that are in the novella that's coming out from Madison Press, Stranger from Storm. There is this kind of a horror story called Kutsenko's Cage, which a little bit of retrofuturism in there, a little deliberate retrofuturism. And I enjoy that sort of stuff too. Where
I do. I like that kind of thing as well. Yeah.
So at some point I'm going to break down and do something longer in the speculative world. But right now it's like my hobby while I'm a crime writer. But I might combine them.
Yeah, why not, man? I mean, you obviously got the love of it, so why not do it, man?
I do. I mean, I'm not sitting here telling you about my love of all these detective stories or these thrillers, but we talked for 20 minutes about how much I love H.P. Lovecraft. So.
Yeah. Well, that happened to me. I think it's just as soon as I get talking, everybody starts talking about. No, actually, that is a very good point. We should actually address that. So you're obviously doing the detective fiction and that kind of thing. So who were your idols in that kind of world, in the crime fiction world?
I mean, again, I'm a classicist, so I've read everything Conan Doyle ever did, again and again and again.
Same. Yeah.
But again, my favorite Conan Doyle story is Hounds of the Baskervilles, which is almost a speculative story.
It is almost, isn't it? Very close. It's very, very close. Yeah.
But I also like Alistair MacLean a lot, who is not speculative in any way, but strong men doing exciting, adventuresome things. And so
daring do. Nice.
And modern writers, I'm a big fan of Ronald Barak. He's done some stuff also in Eastern Europe that's good. And Chris Goff in Red Sky, she's really good. And I like James Ellroy. He's very, I think.
I got into Ellroy because I read because I was actually reading up about the Black Dahlia murder case.
Oh, okay.
And I realized, and I knew that he'd done a sort of fictionalized account of it. So I read that when I was reading up on the Black Dahlia case, and I got into Ellroy through that because that's a superb book. Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And he does period piece dialogue so well, like you really believe this is really like how they talked, and the uncensored version of some Humphrey Bogart film you'd see where they could say what they really think.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's a good point. It is, isn't it? It's like, what they would say in in an old Bogart movie or Jimmy Cagney or something, if they were allowed.
Right. if you're allowed to have the sexism and the racism and the sort of like that sort of stuff. And so he's great. So but I'm a hardcore classicist even in that. I read a lot of Dashiell Hammett, Conan Doyle. I actually just read for the first time about 2 months ago. Uh, and Then There Were None by Agatha Christie.
Nice. Yeah.
Have you ever read that?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
You have? Okay. Well,
Yes,
I
I
didn't
have.
get around to read, and and again, you're almost too. You can see the serial killer thing, because it's about everybody getting knocked off one by one by one.
Yep.
And, that
I
I
have a
enjoy.
bit. The thing is, I grew up a lot of my time with my grandparents, and like my grandfather used to read all the sort of pulp, like detective stuff and like that. But my gran was really hardcore into Agatha Christie, so we so we had them all. So I, wet Sunday afternoons, I'd just read them, and I got really into them because they're incredibly clever and complex.
Oh, sure. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, she's the greatest crime writer ever.
There's a reason, it's yeah. Yeah, I never read a lot of the really sort of contemporary stuff. Again, like I'm exactly the same as you with that. I'm very much classics, especially with crime writing. Yeah.
Well, you read a lot of horror. Who do you read modern? Do you read like Stephen King? Do you?
I read Stephen King a lot more when I was younger. Because the people I got who were like the contemporary writers at the time when I grew up were people like Stephen King, Ramsey Campbell, Clive Barker. So obviously I read those guys, but Ramsey Campbell was my guy, because he was just down the road from me and all that. So he was kind of my horror writer. I read a lot of modern horror stuff, especially like the cosmic horror stuff. I read a lot of people like Laird Barron, John Langan and Caitlin Arkin and Peter Rawlik, people like that, who basically have taken the Lovecraft stuff and done their own thing with it in the same way that I'm trying to do, So yeah, so I do read a lot. I read a lot of contemporary stuff there, basically because I've ran out of the old stuff. I've got it all and I've read it all. So because again, it's back to my collecting here. I've collected it all.
You're amazingly productive. I saw a video of yours, maybe it's a year old, where you said you'd only been a writer for 8 years. You've only been a writer for maybe 2-3 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's about right.
Did I understand that? And yet,
that's about right. Yeah.
How much have you
my
published?
first publication, the end of 2019, December 2019 was my first publication.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was working in KGB Banker before your first publication. It's just coming out now.
Really?
Yeah. So how many short stories have you published? How much longer fiction have you published?
I've so far it's about 80 short stories, and it's going to be like 5 novellas, something like that. It's all happened incredibly quickly, and but the thing is, I had a lot of stuff already written because I'd been writing for a long time, but it wasn't anywhere near the quality it should have been. But I had these stories there, so when I got into writing again, I went back and I redid them all and so I had basically quite a stockpile of stuff starting out, because I'm one of these idiots who'd been convinced myself that nobody would buy it and nobody would, I'm one of them people. I'm just like, nah. So I was just doing it for myself, and then I just thought, to hell with it. I'm going to try and get something published, and it happened. And yeah.
Well, congratulations.
So how long have you been writing then?
About 10 years.
Right.
Longer than that, really.
Yeah.
I left America, went to Manchester, got my master's degree in novel writing, and had my first book published, which was a historical novel called Lenin's Harem, which, by the way, I feel I have to say this for the rest of my life, is not about either Lenin nor a harem.
Nice.
My first publisher changed it. It was a historical novel, and there was all these Latvian soldiers that were like the guards around Lenin, and they're very loyal to him. So they got a nickname, Lenin's Harem, because they're always with him and they were very loyal.
Right.
And my original publisher thought, oh, that's a great title, and changed it from I think it was called Red Shadows to Lenin's Harem. And maybe it is a good title in the sense that you remember it. But now for the rest of my life, I have to explain that my book is not about Lenin, and it's not about a harem.
That's quality.
The curse of being a writer, but it's out there. People can read it. So.
I like Red Shadows. I don't see what was wrong with that.
I agree. So
it's a good one, that Red Shadows.
I can use that somewhere else. I know now that.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. It's got nothing to do with Lenin. It's got nothing to do with the harem. Brilliant.
So my first anything was published in 2011. That was a short story called Blue Amber, which is an adventure suspense story that was in Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine.
Nice.
And I've done pretty well in Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine, the Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine.
Yeah.
I think my little niche is stories that's set in Eastern Europe or occasionally ancient Rome. I have a history degree. That was my degree. And again, especially with Hitchcock, and stories that are on the edge of almost being something speculative, but they're not. And so, I push that as far as I can.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's into speculative stuff will think, this is pretty tame or pretty subtle. But if you're into like detective fiction, it'll be like, is there something else going on here? So
yes,
depends on who your audience is.
Yeah, I mean, but it's obviously working, because if it wasn't working, you wouldn't be getting in the magazines, would it? So,
no.
So I mean, if it works, then great.
I enjoy it, and I've got to live many interesting places, and inspires me every day just walking around here, and the people you talk to, and the architecture, and I learn about the history, and again, you see anything from something serious where you're like, oh, I can definitely use that, to something about just some clueless Westerner who doesn't know what's going on, which is usually me. It's usually a personal experience. And I say, oh, I can throw that in some detective story somewhere where my poor detective doesn't know what's going on, just like I didn't.
Yeah. Them moments when you're in a foreign country and you're looking up at a menu in a restaurant and you're going, I've got no idea what any of that means. That moment. And you're there with your little phrase book going, crap.
I was in Moscow early in my experience in Eastern Europe, and I didn't speak any Russian. And I tried to order French fries at this restaurant, and instead I got French press coffee. So, you realize,
brilliant. That's a good one.
You realize there's a language barrier. So it's like these foreign people speak a different language, and
I made a mistake. The guy I went to when I went over to Russia, the guy I went with was from Latvia, so he didn't have a clue about any of it either. I thought, I'll be fine,
The first time I visited Moscow, I visited with a friend of mine, and we were younger, and we were trying to chat up the girls, and we thought we were saying, my name is Bill, or my friend is Steve. My name is Steve, but we were actually saying, my factory is Bill, my factory is Steve. We were saying it wrong. Surprisingly, we didn't do very well. I don't know why.
Oh, it's brilliant. So, did you ever watch Monty Python?
I love Python.
Yeah, the Hungarian phrase book sketch.
Yes.
Where somebody's intentionally written it so they say rude things into, so he's wanting to ask about, could you tell me where the station is, and it's like, please fondle my buttocks.
He's fond of my buttocks, right?
Yeah.
Python's great. Yeah, no, I remember that sketch very.
It's all
wary of such things like that. But, but you do meet some fascinating people over here.
Yes.
And, I live in Ukraine now. I used to live in Riga, Latvia, where much of KGB Banker is set. And
Right.
have you ever been lucky enough to go to Riga? Have you been to Riga?
No, I
You have?
haven't. I haven't. No,
No.
no. The only place I've been in Eastern Europe is Russia. It's
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, Riga is absolutely beautiful, and
yeah.
it's in Soviet times they used to have a television show, and they used to film Sherlock Holmes things there because it could pass for Victorian London.
Yes.
And so, if you imagine that sort of architecture combined with sort of the Germanic, and it's a
Yeah.
great place to live. And then
I've
Odessa
seen,
here in
I've seen it in
Ukraine.
film, and it just looks breathtaking. You know,
Yeah.
it is that Gothic sort of architecture and everything. It's just like, oh man, I love all that. So yeah,
It's
it's yeah. So it is on my list to go there at some point. With about 100 other countries, that I'll probably never
Oh,
afford
sure.
to do it. But it's
You said you've lived around. Have you lived lived in another country besides the UK?
no. Well, if you could count Scotland. No, I've only lived in the UK, but I've lived from like one end to the other and all over
Yeah.
everywhere.
Where in
Yeah.
Scotland did you live?
I've got family, Arbroath,
Oh,
up
okay.
in the Highlands. Yeah. So I lived just there for a while, and in Dundee as well. But yeah,
Uh, I think
so
our
I
internet
love
is slowing
Scotland.
down a
It's,
bit.
yeah, I love Scotland. It's
Oh, me too. I was lucky enough to be what's called a Hawthornden Castle Fellow, and it's this fellowship.
I saw
Uh,
that on your bio. Yeah.
do you know about it?
Mm.
Not my personal
No, I haven't a
experience. But
clue.
you know about it. Oh, you should apply for it because it's amazing. It's there's this castle, let's say 20 minutes by bus outside of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And I know the name of the city, but I know I'd pronounce it wrong. So let's just say 20 minutes outside of Edinburgh. And it's a castle that was owned by the Heinz family, from Ketchup and all that. Druse
Yes.
Heinz, she owned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's passed on now, but she was really an advocate of the arts. And so 3 months a year she lived there, and the other 9 months a year it was open for fellowships where you would go, writers would apply, and if you got accepted, you would go there and you'd live 1 month in a medieval castle where the cooks would feed you breakfast and dinner in a full, gala servings of everything in a medieval chamber with everything you can sort of imagine. And at lunchtime, wherever you were, they would bring you your lunch there, so you wouldn't disturb you for your writing. So for cost nothing. The only cost was you have to get there. And
Yeah.
for 1 month, he lived in a castle with 3 other writers and just wrote.
That's
And
amazing.
you didn't owe them a cent, and they didn't have any rights to your work. It was all just for the beauty of being a writer and promoting the arts. And it was amazing. And I mean, you can imagine the sort of stories that come to your mind living in castle for a month.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Well, Rats in the
highly
Walls.
recommended.
I'll probably end up writing a sequel to Rats in the Walls.
Yeah, well, I did have sort of a haunting experience there at some point.
Cool.
But,
Yeah.
Ian Rankin was also one of the writers, not at the same time as me, but had been there
Yes.
previously. And so, but
That's very cool.
again, 1 month. And they come and they do your laundry. I mean, they fed you. You had to do nothing but sit and write for 1 month
Oh,
in a
man.
castle. And so,
That's like a vision of heaven, isn't it?
yeah,
not
it
having
was.
not having real life getting in the way at all. That's always the issue, isn't it? When you start writing, real life comes knocking. So that's,
That annoying real life. It's always causing trouble.
yeah,
And I just live
exactly.
in my fantasy world. The whole time.
Yeah. It's like the whole Stephen King thing of going and living in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. It seems really attractive, you know. You're not going to have people knocking on your door for like asking if you want to donate or
Right.
these interruptions that you get. It's like if I've got a deadline, I have to turn the internet off. because
Oh,
so like the worst thing for my productivity is the internet, because I'll just go,
100%.
I'll just check this social media.
Uh, I'm exactly like you. 100%. I cannot. When I go to cafes or libraries, I take a computer that I have not ever like created an account at that cafe or library, so I have no temptation to just check my email. But I mean, I'm interested in so many subjects that
Yeah.
I'll be like working away, and I'll think, I wonder how long sharks live. Let's find out how long sharks live. And,
That's the sort of thing mostly about cephalopods. I'll be sitting there and I'll be writing, and I'll sort of go, I wonder how many species of giant Pacific octopus there are. Google.
Right, exactly. So,
Yeah, I haven't
you know,
actually. I actually once. This is no word of a lie. I needed to get out of the house because there was work going on, and so I went out to the library in Brighton, and because I thought, oh, I'll be able to get some work done here. Nope. What did I do? I spent the entire afternoon in the natural history area reading books on octopus. I didn't do anything.
But you know, those little side explorations of information often inspire things. I think.
Yeah, no, same actually. It's like I had something come up ages ago in a story, and I was like, "Ooh, I know what I could put in. I could put in this." And I was like, I had to call my partner in. I was like, Linda, do you remember that afternoon I wasted looking at books about octopus? It wasn't a waste. I've got a paragraph out of it. It wasn't a waste.
And you know, if you're a Lovecraftian writer, you should know everything you need to know about tentacles anyway. So,
Exactly.
exactly.
It's like one of my
yeah.
bookmark is a thesaurus page on all the different words and terms, and it's a complete like glossary of tentacle. So I never run out, and because you know you don't want to use the same word over and over and over again. So I've got this page of hundreds of different things. Appendage.
But what are some synonyms for tentacle? Tell me a few, if you know. If you know,
off the top of my head, it's like the synonym. Oh God. Off the top, I'll have to pull up my thing. I'll send you a list. I'll send you a list.
All right, cool, yeah.
But yeah, synonym, the things like tentacle, there's like pseudopod,
Right.
an appendage they use as well. Obviously arms, but there's one that I've forgotten that is a really good one. But I used it in a story and nobody knew what the hell it meant. It's like an old archaic word for tentacle.
Yeah, so you can go too far where it takes them out of the story because they're, you know, the
exactly
dictionary, right? Yeah.
Do you ever get that with writing, like, because obviously we're doing your crime stuff and everything, so you've got to have the historical aspect, and like your thing, your KGB banker with like and all the rest of it. So there's obviously going to be historical facts in there. Can you ever go too far with it to the point where people, it's not a story anymore, it's more like a Wikipedia page?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the book, first book I did, again, the Lenin's Harem, as we discussed, which is not about Lenin or harem.
You should just get that tattooed on your forehead.
That actually was, but that book actually was was a 200,000 word book as my first novel.
Lucky.
And I had to, and I had to cut it into 1/3, the most sort of linear, cognizant 1/3 to make the first book, because I just fell in love with all the history and the geography, and I just went, and I just went, and so it's very much a danger that you can fall in love with your research, especially when you do sort of historical things like that.
Yeah, I found that when I did a story set during World War II, and I got really carried away with specifications of the Hawker Hurricane. And my partner Linda, she's my beta reader as well. She read it and was just like, Tim, we don't need to know all this crap about the Hawker Hurricane. He's flying a plane. That's all we need to know. know, as I was going into engine specifications, and I was just like, yeah, because I just got wrapped up in it. I was like,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard to throw away your well-earned research, especially if you think something's interesting. Oh, my reader will want to know this, even if it stops your plot dead on,
yeah.
And then you have to say, why is your character thinking or saying this right now? Because in reality, they know this by heart. They wouldn't be thinking or saying this right now.
Yeah, that's the one Linda always catches me on. She's always like, would your main character know all this crap about the Hawker Hurricane? He wouldn't, would he? So why are you saying it?
Yeah. In the two books that we've been talking about of mine, KGB Bankers and the historical, it's modern.
Yeah.
But there's all the banking and finance stuff, and you had to find a balance there between, really getting down into economics and
because because that could just grind your plot to a complete standstill, couldn't it? All about stats and God knows what else. But you have to have enough of it in there that it seems authentic.
Yeah, especially since it's loosely inspired in some ways by a real crime. So it's very important, especially to my co-author, John, to make sure that we got the truth. But we had to do it in a way that bankers and accountants weren't the only people that would be interested. And so,
of course. Yeah.
There's the push-pull there. And then in The Stranger from the Storm, of course, that is a historical setting in 1900. But my main characters are both 15 years old. And so you had to filter it through what would interest a 15-year-old, 120 years ago. And
that's an interesting conundrum, really, because it's like hard enough trying to think what would interest a 15-year-old now. Never mind back then.
Right, and I'm an adult male, and my protagonists are
teenage girls,
15-year-old girls in a different time and a different culture, But you just got to sort of believe in the universal, human views.
Yes,
run with that. Yeah.
That's kind of where I always go on that as well. I'll just kind of go, well, I was a teenage boy. I knew teenage girls. What were they into? Try and see the world through my 14-year-old self.
Right. And so in Stranger from the Storm, but also it's also the sort of book where, yes, it's set in that time period, but I've read enough sort of Victorian literature and that sort of stuff where I can kind of get it. I just have to shift it slightly for the different culture, but it's still the same sort of thing. And we've got a lot of dark humor that I think hopefully is universal. So,
Yes. Nice.
But like Lennon's Harem was a sort of very serious thing about war and a creation of a country. And this is about two girls that think, oh, this guy from London might be a mass murderer. They're different feels to them,
Yeah, definitely.
How much historical detail,
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So when is that out? Have you got a release date for that yet?
Yeah, the people at Madison tell me it's November 4th.
Brilliant. And, excellent. Yeah, I will put whatever links that you have to it, to that, and links to KGB Banker under the YouTube video. I
would very much appreciate that.
No, I will. Yeah, I do that for everybody. It's like I didn't have time to write everything down, but So, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much for having me. And on those links, so your audience can decide whether they want to read about a banker that's scared of Russian spies, or two girls 100 years ago that are scared of a London guy from London. Your
there
choice.
You go. They're different. Very different.
Very different.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. So if you people at home want to check out, like I did earlier, if you're going to check out his website, all the details and stuff like that is on there. That is WilliamBurtonMcCormick.com. It will be underneath as well, but I just like my cardboard. WilliamBurtonMcCormick.com. It's a tradition now. I've got to fiddle about on my cardboard. Is it? But the way I see it, right? I'm doing my bit for the world. I'm recycling. These are old Amazon boxes. I'm doing something useful with them.
It's all a matter of recycling, right?
Exactly. Oh, nice, nice. Well done. Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Bill. It's been an absolute pleasure. You'll have to come on again because I feel that we could chat.
I would come anytime. I appreciate it very much, Tim. Thank you very much.
No problem. And thank you all at home for listening to us waffling on. Yep, and tune in next time. We'll probably have another one in about another week or something like that. Just hit like and subscribe. Thank you, and good night all.
At the altar there is a man, he stands beside a girl. He reaches up and tears apart his face. Leading to the portal, to where the monsters live. Let the reader